I'd like to think that he, and not just he, but the broader players have seen that myself and the club have got a very strong player welfare mindset. Where they're going to go and how they're travelling outside of football, where they're going to go beyond football. I think that's really, really important in what is a changing landscape, and even particularly important with what we've been through. So, yeah, we've got a really good relationship with Job, and who knows what his involvement with the club may be into the future anyway.
Hello and welcome to a big edition of Bomber Radio. Simon Conway joining you alongside Jack Levitt. That was the voice of the CEO, Xavier Campbell, at the top of the program. We'll catch up with him very shortly. But Jack, it's an exciting time to be an Essendon fan leading into a big final against the Swans.
It's a very exciting time, Simo. Thank you for having me, of course, as always. Massive. Haven't played a final since 2014. I was there that night when we went down to the Kangaroos. We haven't won a final since 2004, so... of course, there's all the talk. We finished 7th. We know what happened last season with the Bulldogs. So there's a great atmosphere around the club. That's right. And obviously Essendon and Sydney have a rich rivalry on the final stage, but it's not that final in 1996 that I think about. It's the final in 99 where Mark McCurry dominated for a half and then spent the remaining 2 quarters on the bench, but he'd already won the game for the Bombers. So hopefully there can be a repeat of that on Saturday week when the Bombers fly up there. They'll surely take a bit of confidence out of the way they performed against Sydney, who were up and about earlier on in the season, and obviously it came down to the wire and the side just fell short. But they also take, Essendon's won 6 of the last 8 games, so hopefully that can translate into another strong showing against the Swans up there next week. Absolutely. I was there for that one, Simon, as well, back at the SCG in June. No point going back over old ground talking about that game, but we did turn up that night, and we definitely brought our A game without Cale Hooker. If we wind our memory back, that was when he had the finger injury fairly late in the week. But it certainly is exciting. Also, 6 buses already have been filled up of fans that are going to head up and watch the game. So there should be a really good showing of red and black up there. Always good support up in Sydney. Now, reflecting quickly on last weekend, a win against the Dockers, which secured the Bombers' spot in the finals race. Fantastic to see Joe Watson celebrated the way he was. James Kelly as well. Tributes to Brent Stanton before the game as well. So it's great to see those guys honoured in the home stretch of their Essendon career. Obviously, we hope that there's a number of games for those guys still to play. But in terms of the votes, a number of exceptional performances and a number of guys unlucky to miss out. Dyson Heppel, 30 possessions. David Zaharakis, the freshly re-signed David Zaharakis, was excellent again. Mark Bagley, very good. James Stewart booted 4 goals. But as good as those guys were, they didn't get in the top 3 in the Bomber Radio votes. Tough. Very tough. For 1 vote, Brendan Goddard, 32 possessions and 15 marks, more than any player on the ground. He was impressive, stood up when we needed to. 2 votes, Jobe Watson, probably his best game of the season. I think it was, yeah. He was excellent in the midfield, 26 possessions, 20 of them contested. He was brilliant. And for 3 votes, Zach Merritt for his 4 goals and 31 disposals. That ties away the Bomber Radio MVP leaderboard. So Michael Hurley and Zach Merritt are the equal leaders at this stage, and we will keep voting as long as the Essendon senior side are playing. So couldn't have written it, Simon. Couldn't have written it. It's all set up, everything to play for. The Bomber Radio MVP is on the line over the next month, so I'm sure that will inspire the playing group, but there's also a big game I'm sure that'll get them up and about next week against the Swans. But firstly, let's get to the Chief Executive Officer of the Essendon Football Club, Xavier Campbell. And the CEO of the Essendon Football Club, Xavier Campbell, joins us on Bomber Radio. Xavier, thanks a lot for your time, mate.
Thanks, Jack and Simon.
How are you feeling on the eve of a final series?
I feel excited. Yeah, it's it's gone relatively quickly this year. There's been, some, I guess if you break the season into thirds, it was hard to probably put a finger on exactly where we sat in that first part or how we were going to sit, and I think we did pretty well bringing the group together. And the middle third was probably our most consistent football, and the last third, in a strange way, it's probably we've lacked a little bit of consistency, but we probably won our most games. So maybe a bit of a sign of maturity in some respects. So yeah, I feel really excited. I mean, to be playing finals football, if you said that to us at the start of the year, that's where we're going to get to, we would have taken that.
you've dealt with a lot of issues in your time as CEO. The issues at the moment are, will Cale Hooker get up? Will Orazio Fantasia play? Michael Hurley? How many buses do we need to transport our fans to Sydney? That must be refreshing that we're talking about football issues.
Yeah, it is nice. I was saying that to the playing group last week. You know, the relevance is now around football performance, not so much the issues, which is refreshing. You know, I can sort of, in my 3.5 years as CEO, that's sort of been something that's slowly shifted. But now, you know, it's exciting because I guess you look at, we have the potential to put nearly our best, or hopefully our best 22 on the park in 2 weeks' time, a week and a half's time. So, you know, hopefully those players will get up, and the feedback has been pretty positive, but we'll have to just wait and see.
What are you thinking of our chances heading into that game? Obviously, it is a huge game, elimination final. We've got to go back up to Sydney as we did earlier in the year. What's your gut feel?
Well, I mean, they're the form side of the comp in many respects, or certainly the most consistent. They were when we played them middle of the year. I think they'd won their previous 6 or something like that. So, you know, that, I guess that in isolation is not so much daunting, but it just shows that you're up against the real benchmark. If you cast your mind back to when we played them, you know, I thought our guys competed really well, probably put themselves into a winning position that couldn't quite close in almost extraordinary circumstances toward the end. So, you know, it'd be an interesting question for what Sydney think, playing Essendon, a team that really pushed them last time. But for us, I don't think our guys are daunted by the challenge. I think they're really, really excited. Nothing to lose.
You touched on before about the season, how it did unfold and the bringing together of the players, obviously with the returning guys coming back. Were you surprised at all by the impact that they did have? And we've seen Michael Hurley in hopefully all Australian form this year.
Yeah, it was always really hard to know because at football at the elite level, it was a margin for error, and it's really fine. And you know, missing a year of football like that, I know, they trained pretty hard, but it still wasn't the absolute elite training or consistency in preparation that you normally would have. The impact, what was that going to have? I think each of them found it, different in a different way. Hurl's probably started a bit slower, but his form beyond round 5, I mean, he wasn't awful by any stretch. He was still very, very good. But the standard he's set now, well, that's the last sort of 12 or 14 weeks has been quite exceptional. Hep has had different games. He's probably at points not quite played at level he wanted, but he's just got this great ability to grind his way in the games and have a real impact. And there's been 3 or 4 games where he just has lifted the team, and even on the weekend he had 12 touches in the last quarter and really was inspirational. The Hawthorn game round 1, he was inspirational. So I think for each of them it's probably impacted them differently. Hopefully now with this break comes at a really good time to really sharpen the group up and get them right for the first final against Sydney.
Jobe Watson's one of those returning players. He's on his farewell tour at the moment. Hopefully it goes the full 4 games, but obviously he announced his retirement recently. How did those discussions, did he approach you? How did that sort of unfold?
I'd caught up, I'd probably catch up with Jobe once a month anyway. We have a coffee and we talk part football, but mostly other stuff really. He came to me, texted me on the Monday and said, you got time this afternoon to catch up? And he came to me and said he's made the decision that this would be his last year. And we spoke about that. We spoke about the broader, the context behind it and everything else like that. And I support him because I know he's very comfortable with that decision. I know he's very happy about it. It feels like it's the right decision now. And, there's no use trying to either talk him out of it or anything else like that. Jobe's big enough and ugly enough to be able to manage those sorts of things himself. He's an exceptional person. So that was what the Monday, and then it was announced the Wednesday morning, I think. So it happened pretty quickly.
How has your relationship with him evolved over the last few years? Was he sort of the person you went to first when all these things were unfolding over the last few years? Or
yeah, I probably, it was a concerted effort early, particularly from me to really get close to Jobe because he was captain. We were facing quite unique challenges. So it was probably more than what a normal CEO, I'd imagine, their relationship with their captain would be. And, I sort of see Jobe as more of a peer than I do as a subordinate in terms of an organisational structure. He's been very helpful for me, and I think I've been helpful for him. So, I've got a really close relationship. I think over the years he's sort of, I'd like to think that he, and not just he, but the broader players have seen that myself and the club have got a very strong player welfare mindset, and that's not just them, the footballers, them, the person. And where they're going to go and how they're travelling outside of football, where they're going to go beyond football. I think that's really, really important in what is a changing landscape, and even particularly important with what we've been through. So, we've got a really good relationship with Job, and who knows what his involvement with the club may be into the future anyway.
Just really nice to see him walk out on the weekend with a smile on his face. Wilshire spoke about after the game, and the Job that we've come to know over the years is the cheerful character as well. So that was brilliant. Another reason to smile, David Zaharakis re-signed yesterday for 4 years, which is awesome. We add his name to the list of long-term commitments with Hurley, Hooksy, of course, Hep, Zach, Joe. That must be great to now add Zach to that list as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Zach probably started a little slowly, but his last 3 months has been exceptional. He's a real barometer for our team. He's a self-proclaimed Essendon through and through, and he's supported Essendon his entire life. It's great to be able to add him now for those 4 years. He's someone said to me this morning, I was doing some radio, and off radio they were asking, was 4 years too long? And I sort of said, well, he's pretty damn durable, and he's pretty important to our overall makeup as a team. So, he looks after himself incredibly well. His off season last year was spent hiking through different areas through the US, and a lot of it was by himself. And he's just all about self improvement. So we feel very excited and satisfied that he's been able to commit for 4 more years.
Shifting focus, Xavier, the AFLW. What do we read into the Commission's decision to delay any announcement on expansion?
I think for me, it says how important and serious this next phase of growth is going to be for AFLW. I think everyone would love the decision yesterday, but it seems quite prudent and appropriate and responsible to go and do that. They're obviously challenging the AFL executive to do some more modelling or work around what growth looks like, and hopefully it means more teams than less. I'd love to think that the Commission make a decision not just for 2019 but the years beyond that for all the clubs to give them greater certainty about entering the AFLW league. I think that's going to be really important. So I feel really confident in our position. I would like to think that we will get a licence because our application and bid is a compelling one. And the whole provisional licence piece, I don't necessarily agree with that. It was something that was made 18 months ago post teams applying. For us, we just weren't in a position to be able to apply 18 months ago for obvious reasons from the fallout associated with the CAS decision. So, we've always invested in this space. We've had right back to the Essendon Women's Network 20 years ago. So, the role of women in football has always been profound to us. The evolution to get a women's team was always going to be a natural fit for us. So, we feel like we've put together a proposal and bid that is compelling but is genuine and authentic. So, we feel really excited about it.
Why do you feel our proposal is so compelling? What is it that we've included that you feel?
Yeah, well, I think a big part for us is a real focus. There's two areas: the heartland, so that northwest corridor. So strong alliance with the Essendon District Football League, the Riddle Football League, but also in a really big growth corridor for this country. So we feel like being able to, foster talent, build talent, promote talent through there. And obviously Calder is a big thing. Calder in the under-18 competition, there's not quite a full pathway for girls and women's football through that region, and there should be because it is such a rich football region. I think girl finishes under 18s with Calder, then it's Darramount or it's the Western Spurs, and that's just not. It just feels like there's a real gap there. We want to satisfy that gap. The other piece is a really strong connection to an area that's always been important to Essendon through the Northern Territory and some remote Indigenous communities, in particular Tiwi Islands and Maningrida. And we hope that, we would like to think a third of our list will probably come from those remote communities, giving them the opportunity to fulfil their potential. So that's really, really exciting. We've got a $18 million footy facility expansion that will deliver hopefully the best female facilities in the competition in sort of 2 to 3 years' time. So that's why we feel it's compelling. It's really exciting and an opportunity that we want to be able to grasp.
On the flip side, what happens if we miss out? How does that change anything for us?
Well, it doesn't, because we've built a girls' academy. We've already heavily invested into the Northwest through coaching. It's a big investment to the coaching piece around girls and women's football to fast track development. So we will continue to invest very heavily in that. There's the opportunity too for a VFLW team, which we're seriously considering we will likely take up.
There's a report this morning in terms of our financial position, potential $4 million profit. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, we've still got 2 months of our financial year to go, but if you looked at the hard numbers now, we are in a really good position to make a multi-million-dollar profit this year. It may be around that, maybe slightly more than that, hopefully. It will depend on a couple of factors going into reporting season toward the end of October. But there's no doubt that we really, with such a significant debt at the end of last year, $10.5 million, we really needed to ensure that this year was a significant step forward. We've probably spent a lot of time streamlining aspects of our business, probably reducing our cost base to ensure that we could make a really significant profit this year. We've had tremendous support from our fans. Our membership has far exceeded expectations. Our match receipts and returns has far exceeded expectations. So they've been two critical factors that have played a part, will play a part in us announcing such a significant outcome. So
what does that enable you and your executive team, the board, to do in sort of the short term?
In the immediate term, it means we create a much more manageable level of debt, which is important, and hopefully that debt positions somewhere between $6 or $7 million by the end of this year, and then hoping to be able to pay it down in the next 18 to 24 months thereafter, which is it really would be a fantastic outcome. But there will also be a lot of investment into this proposed expansion too. So we will take on other debt at a point in time. But for now, it was probably getting ourselves back to an even playing field when it came to our financial position, and we'll be able to do that.
You touched on it earlier, but record membership this year and attendances right up the top of the table across the league. What have you made of that support? Well,
I mean, nothing would surprise you when you think of the Essendon supporter base. They have been the most challenged of any supporter base over the past few years. They are by far the most loyal, and I get that I'm biased, but I've supported Essendon my entire life. I've seen the support that the club has received from its fans throughout that period, and that is what underpins the strength of the Essendon Football Club. So to see the numbers this year is just, it's almost breathtaking, really, when you look at it. I know it sort of it touches an emotional chord with staff and players when they see those numbers and the bounce back and how significant it's been. In a similar way to how it did at the start of last year, when you thought world had fallen down, we'd lost players, but we still had such amazing support. And I know round 2 was a great indication of that against Melbourne. That win that we had there was really emotional, and that broader fan base was just so pivotal. And they're so pivotal to helping us get to the position we're in now.
Questions coming through thick and fast across social media. One very topical item that pops up continually is the division of games between the MCG and Etihad. Currently it's a 7-4 split. What's the position on that at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we run an annual member survey, and we get significant sample base. I think there's about 6,000 or 7,000 members respond to that. It's sort of, when you look at the home match, the home ground support, it's really quite evenly. They're both evenly supported, the MCG and Etihad. I feel like we probably need to get to a point where we seriously consider an additional game at the MCG. But again, there is still a lot of discussions happening with the AFL, the changing landscape at Etihad Stadium with the AFL now, with the early buyout of the stadium, the potential for significant government funding to improve that outcome and improve that experience should be taken into consideration seriously moving forward as well. But it does feel like skewing that more toward the MCG with another additional game. It does feel probably like the right way to go.
Another equally as popular question off social media using the hashtag Bomber Radio. Pops Kelly, are we going to keep him? Will he be coaching here at Essendon next year?
Well, it's probably not a decision for me. That's obviously a football department decision, and Woosher and Rob Kerr as head of football. Probably a bit of work to do between now and the end of the season around what the structure is that the guys want to take into the 2018 season. The football coaching structure, development structure. But I know, listening to the other players, and I think Andy McGrath's spoken about it. There was another player the other day that spoke about the impact that James Kelly's had on their development and their learning, developing their football IQ has been profound. So, I think he'd be a serious candidate. Been a great asset for our football club over the last 24 months.
Julian from Boston has actually written in. Thanks for your support of the program, Julian from afar. He wants to know about how the club's positioned in terms of free agency.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a Julian that I've been contacted from Boston, and he wants some footballs for his local AFL team over there, which
Boston Demons.
Boston Demons, that's right.
Yeah.
We did shoot some footballs over to him. So call that to Julian. I mean, we are. I feel like for the first time in a while, we've certainly, and Adrian Dodoro and Rob Kerr should be commended for their management of our TPP. I feel like we've got the flexibility coming into this off-season to be really active. What it looks like, we have to wait and see. Clearly, we've been linked to a number of players, and it's not appropriate for me to talk to specific players, but we want to keep improving our list. We need to keep finding that extra 10 to 20% improvement in the off-season across our list, our performance outcomes, our coaching, our broader club, so we continue this trajectory that we're on. So, hopefully that answers your question.
We often have coaches on this program just finally, and we ask them about who from the playing group they see as potential coaches one day. In your position as a CEO, is there a player that sticks out as you see as a potential business leader, a football leader, in terms of in an administrative sense down the track?
Yeah, there's probably two that spring to mind. David Myers, really impressive. He's got quite a strong commercial acumen from everything I see. And Job's probably the other one that's very similar. David's studying commerce. Job's probably more into the property at this point, but just a good thinker. Both are really good thinkers, and are really, really impressive above and beyond just their impact on the football piece. They've certainly had an involvement in the broader club piece as well. Well,
there'll be central figures on the field next weekend when the Bombers take on the Swans. Xavier, really appreciate your time, mate. Congratulations on all the success the club's had thus far this season, and we're really looking forward to a big month of football. Well, thanks for the work that you, Simon, and you, Jack, have done in bringing this Bomber Radio program. I know the fans enjoy it, and it's an important platform for us to communicate with them. So thank you very much. Good on you, mate.
Thanks.
The Bomber fans join us every week on the footy panel. Myself, Julian De Stoop, and Scott Lucas. Scotty, what can the fans look out for?
Each week we'll review the weekend's game, we'll look forward to the upcoming game, and we'll have a very special guest each week.
Yeah, normally one of Scotty's former teammates as well. So Bomber fans, tune in every week for the footy panel.
Big thank you to Xavier Campbell for joining us on Bomber Radio. Interesting to get his thoughts on a number of topics there, including AFLW. We obviously hope that the Essendon bid is one of the successful ones when the AFL announced that next month. Jack, you've spent a fair bit of time working on this bid and some time in the Northern Territory. What's the feeling like up on the ground in the NT, and what's the level of talent like up there?
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to get up there 3 times in the last 10 months now. Including just a couple of weeks ago, we popped up for the Mount Franklin Cup, which was the schoolgirl carnival at TIO Stadium in Darwin there. There is some incredible talent. I've been out to Tiwi Islands as well. I've been over to Maningrida. They're our 2 catchment zones that are aligned with the Bombers. There is red and black everywhere up there. Everyone's got an Essendon hat, a Guernsey, even the occasional scarf, believe it or not. Yeah. Flags hanging from verandas, flags in car windows, the whole lot. But yeah, there's some really incredible talent. Foot speed.
Yep.
They're quick.
Yeah.
Their skills are just raw, but pure. And you can tell they watch their favourite players on the telly, and that's where they learn most of their tricks. And at the risk of putting out a little bit too much excitement, there is a Rioli. A female Rioli who I got a good look at and captured some great highlights from. So that's exciting too. That would be very exciting to see. Xavier's talking potentially about a third of the list being made up. Yeah, that'd be incredible. Players from the top end, that would be fantastic. Now, a number of other things on the agenda at the moment, Jack, including a VFL final this weekend on Sunday at Port Melbourne, North Port Oval, 2:40 the first bounce, live coverage on Channel 7 if you can't get along to the game, but with no senior game. Do your best to get along. The Bombers taking on Footscray, who they just edged past a couple of weeks ago. It certainly promises to be an enthralling encounter. The Essendon and VFL sides had some tremendous success in finals campaigns in recent seasons, and they'll be hoping to emulate those performances again this weekend. Nick O'Brien leading the charge as the captain. He's in excellent form, had a brilliant year. Number of VFL listed players, 4 VFL listed players are heading along to a state combine, so there's plenty of talent there to get along, and also a number of AFL
listed players, both young and old, who will be looking to stake a claim for a call-up for that Swans game, and also just to progress the VFL side. It'd be great to see them have some success on the final stage. Now, also, in terms of the match against Sydney, there's plenty of ticketing information all on the Essendon website, so make sure you stay across that. Jack, you mentioned the buses. We're at half a dozen at the moment.
Yeah.
If you're interested in that, check out the Essendon website and get on board. A great way to...
Is Sheeds driving one of them, or I saw something on Twitter?
Yep.
Sheeds was in the doorway of the bus doing something.
I believe the application for a bus licence has been submitted with Vic Roads, and it will come down to whether Sheeds can master weaving between some cones with his 80-seater. But so that is to play out. But I'm sure the fans that do choose to travel to Sydney by bus will get the full experience with Kay Sheedy in attendance. So check out all the ticketing information, bus information, open training sessions too, including one this Friday. Check that out on the Essendon website. But it's exciting, Jack. Next week will be a very special guest on next week's show, the coach of the Essendon Football Club, John Worsfold. It'd be great to sit down with him and pick his brain ahead of his big